Hello, everyone. Welcome to Table Talks. We are so excited to have you here at the table with us. I am Martina Young, and I also have with me April Starks, as she waves, and Bernice Michelle
Yeah.
Mitchell. Hey, so we are so glad that you are joining with us here at the table for a conversation. We believe in coming together and just sharing. When you come to the table, it's an opportunity to not only communicate, not only to receive good food, but even to just to connect and impart. And that's our plan. And so today, we're coming with the second part of a series that we started on identity. We kicked it off with me versus me. And today we are going to be digging into still identity, but talking about me versus them. Me versus them. So get your ears ready to listen and let's see what we can come up with and what we can lead this conversation with. So, me versus them, I'm going to ask you all, first of all, when you hear that me versus them, what do you think of? What do you think of when you hear that me versus them?
I'll go first. I have a very interesting thought process with this them people or individuals. Sometimes them is not even real. You know, them is people that we have created in our minds, with the world that we live in, social media. We think a lot of times that people are watching us because of that like, love button that is on there. And we have created this mindset that we have haters or, that other people are, out to get us or take our ideas or, those type of things. And that is oftentimes created in our own head. And so a lot of times they're not even real, and so I have just come to the mindset of just do me, because them that and sometimes there are some thems, I'm not going to negate the fact that there are some thems out there, but how are they going to stop my flow unless I allow them to stop my flow? How are they going to stop me learning about myself unless I give them that power? And so I refuse to, and you all, everyone watching this that is sitting at the table with us, I implore you to not allow anyone to have that control, even if it's made up in your head, or I don't want to say made up, but even if it's a thought process that you have that everyone is, coming against you or, has this mindset of haters, just social media, the world that we live in has created this mindset that everyone is watching, all eyes on me. And it may be true, but no one can stop your flow unless you give up that control. And so them, to me, they're not even real. And so that's how I keep pushing, because unless someone comes up and has a conversation with me that stops me from growing, or or put their mindset on me, if I accept that mindset, that's the only way that they can control me from evolving into who God has created me to be. Mm-hmm. And so that's just my mindset on it.
That's good.
Yeah. I think when you initially posed that question, I thought about how sometimes we do create those scenarios in our head, whether they're real or whether they're false. I've had both. I've created some false ones because you keep replaying something, keep replaying it, and how our mind is wired, it creates a whole movie, a 3-hour movie.
With sequels.
Right. All in your head. So I've had those experiences, but then I also, to Bernice's point, have had the experiences where definitely them was real, and you could feel the opposition. You could feel, and even sometimes blatantly, openly, not even just a feeling, the actions of people just pure downright mean and evil, that you had to combat. So you versus them, whether it was something you could visibly see or not. But what I've, learned from that is I never wanted to live in that's what if people who know me, I never really use the word haters and stuff like that. Cause I mean, if there are, I'm not even going to give you that much glory. Like I don't
Right.
even come out of my mouth. I got haters, whatever. I, I just don't allow that to be a part of my vocabulary and my thought process as far as verbalizing, because I think it develops this victim mentality that everybody's against me. And so that's why a lot of people end up having mental issues, because you just create a constant defensive posture. So that even the people who are for you, you have created such a barrier in your brain that even the good people are no longer, they're your enemy. Now everybody's your enemy. And that's when it gets deep, like for real, for real. So, to our point of the last segment, when we're able to know ourselves and we can get in that sweet space of peace, then we're able to recognize either I'm going to dispel the them that is not real, or the ones who are real, I'm not going to let them have that much power over me to where it's going to stop me. We just watched the 10-part series of Michael Jordan. If there wasn't anything else that we learned from that 10-part series, for those who were able to watch that, was the fact that this man, at the height of his career, one of the greatest players in basketball history, created thems. He created thems in his head. I just made up a word, thems. I don't even know. Thems. But he created scenarios in his head to make him go out and play to a high level. So I would propose that if we are going to create scenarios of me versus them, create them to the point that you are an offensive player, that you don't let it make you a victim and suppress your greatness, but that you use that to fuel the fire in you to say, no, I'm going to go out and score 80 tonight or 60-point games like he did whenever he created those scenarios to challenge himself. It wasn't to go against them. It was to challenge himself. And I'll end on this point. I remember when I would have cycles of going into different environments and having the same opposition. And I was like, I know I'm not crazy. Like, for real, God, you got to tell me what this is. And God began to show me, and we talked about this a little bit last episode, it wasn't them. Like, it was them. It was a spirit at work to try to stop what was in me. So I had to look on the inside and get to the point where I was okay with no longer putting up an offense, a barrier against what I was feeling, but to love even more and press through it, because I said, I love myself enough. I know I'm this. Our self-talk. I know I'm this. I know I'm that. Not what this is betraying, not what that was betraying. So it was really about me. And then the them opposition that I was feeling, I no longer let it stop me. I saw it, but I just kept being who God called me to be. But that was through fighting the me versus me battle. So then I can win the me versus them battle.
Girl, that really is, that's so good, because as we launching off of what we talked about before with me versus me, when I settle my identity for myself, and it is a forever growing process, but when I begin to connect with who I am, it changes my interactions with them. It changes the amount of control that them have over me. Like oftentimes we are moved by both the imaginary and the real thems because of how we see ourselves. Because really, when it is settled internally on who we are, it might even hurt, Because sometimes if it's real and people act a certain way, it really might hurt. You know, where they say that old saying from when kids, sticks and stones may break your bones, but words will never hurt you. You know, no, that ain't true. Sometimes the words can hurt you.
Yeah.
But when you know who you are, it changes your response. So digging into learning our identity, it helps me to respond to situations well.
Yeah.
Me knowing who I am, I'm going to be able to, like, if it's imaginary, I'm going to be able to think, I'm going to be able to process that through and say, girl, because sometimes I'm like it too. They think this way. But identity will make you stop, roll back, and say, wait a minute, sister, honey, girl, to yourself. Girl, you got this all twisted. Pause, pray, then proceed. You know what I mean? Like when you have began to discover your identity, and then when you're in a situation where it is real, you do not let what other people say about you define you, or let it be what provokes you to action. And you know, God first started like dealing with me about identity and really digging into it from Luke 4, when Jesus was tempted in the wilderness by the enemy, and he came to him and said, this was the them. He said, if you be the Son of God, then command that these stones be turned to bread. You know, and Jesus said, man shall not live by word alone, but by every word that proceeds from the mouth of God. And he kept coming back saying, if you are the Son of God. And so I'm looking at that, I'm reading through that in Luke 4, and I'm like, oh my God, Jesus never said, hey, I am the Son of God. I'm going to turn this so I can show you who I am. Let me prove to you. Jesus did not attempt to prove anything to the enemy, because he already knew who he was. You know what I'm saying? And when you know your identity, really, it pulls out that proving things to people. Because how many people are in debt trying to prove something to somebody?
Yeah.
Come on. How many people are in relationships? How many women, and this isn't just for women, men too. How many are in relationships with people just to prove to somebody that I can get somebody?
Yes.
That I can have somebody?
Yes.
Spending things, trying to prove things to people, you know, even trying to just to do different things, all for proof. Jesus never tried to prove anything to the enemy. He just came back with the word of God and said, it is written. And if you flip and you look at chapter 3, it ended with Jesus being baptized. And it's where, you know, the Holy Spirit descended on him like a dove. And the Lord spoke and said, this is my beloved Son in whom I'm well pleased. Why are we trying to prove things to them when God has already said who we are? Why are we wasting time trying to prove things to them when my identity is not about, I'm going to use your new word, is not about what them's. It's about what him.
Yeah.
We really do know how to use proper English. We just trying to point across. But you know what I mean? Like literally, it takes away that always constantly trying to make people accept you, because the truth is that the them that God has for you, when you have gone through that place of healing in the area of identity, then you're going to be able to connect to them, the thems that he has for you. You're going to be able to organically connect with them when you have come to that place of God healing you in the area of identity.
That's right.
Go on, y'all, because y'all know.
Yeah. No, that's really good, because you can honestly, and you know, someone who may be struggling with this right now, because like we said, it's a journey. It can physically make you sick.
Yeah.
It physically makes you sick. So to be able to recognize that and call it out, and sometimes you got to ask yourself, who are them? Just ask yourself, because then you'll be like, I don't know.
Yeah.
And then when you say, I don't know, you got to let it go. And
just let it go.
Just drop it. Yeah. And then if you can identify it, if you ask that question, who are they or who are them? If you can identify the very person or whatever that is that thing, then that's a great opportunity to take that to the Father. You know, when we think about, you know, Job, sometimes people think about, you know, yes, Job lost a lot and then he gained so much more by enduring the test. But if you look through that book, you'll see that, look, he prayed for some people who were, they were them. They were them. They didn't fully understand whether it was through bad intentions or good intentions. They didn't fully understand, and he felt that opposition that was coming. So when you can identify it, here's a good practical thing. Take that to the Father. He will, he'll honor you for even your sacrifice of saying, okay, God, I want to be so in tune with you that I see this, I feel this, but I'm taking it to you. And even if it's another person, have enough love to take that person to God. Lord, it's something in them that's hurting. Lord, help them. You know, give them grace, the same grace. You know, a lot of times we want grace when it's for us, but when this is somebody else, we ain't divvying it out. We like, nah, it's on lockdown. But when we need it, we be like, give me all of it, Lord. I want the whole bucket. So sometimes, you know, sometimes he'll give us that insight, and that insight is not for us to necessarily, you know, kill the person or tear the person down. Sometimes that love will extend enough to, like, I can't help them. I mean, you just being honest, I can't help them, but I know who can. Father, I need you to help my sister. You know, he'll look, God's so awesome through the Spirit, he'll give you the direct word for that person. Yeah. Especially if you're a person with a pure heart and you ain't trying to get the direct word to then go tell Martina, Lord, show me so-and-so got what's this spirit or whatever. That it's not to tear them down, but it's to edify, but that you're able to take that to God. You may help their deliverance, the real them. You may help their deliverance by saying, God, I can't do nothing for them. Here you go. I'm laying this before you, but I'm also laying my feelings before you as well, because this is making me feel some kind of way, whatever that is. Putting that before him too, being transparent and honest before God. He already knows, so you might as well just lay it out. Putting that before them, so then you're protecting your identity that you have built up from our first segment, the me versus me. When you're winning that, the thems are gonna keep coming. It's not gonna go away. It's gonna keep coming, but we can deal with our response. Like Martina said, we're changing our response. We're becoming more efficient in how we're responding when those things come, so that we can maintain the victory in the midst of that.
Sometimes the them will help you define or search for your true identity. You know, when you are facing, especially those, I think April, you said something about you kept encountering a certain type of them. And so, like, for myself, you know, I kept running into this certain type of them. And so I had to go and say, okay, Lord, you define me. And so when I allowed the Lord to give me my definition of who I am, and I solidified and I agreed, because we have to agree. Once God tells us, we have to agree with that and take it in. And so once I agreed with that definition, I define myself as a positive force of energy. And so I just a little small testimony, just the climate of what's going on in our society, I felt negative energy coming, and I was starting to internalize that negative energy. And so the them was the things that are going on in society. And then I had to pause and do a reset. And then I had to check myself and say, who am I? And I said, oh, you're a positive force of energy. So let me reset and get back to who I am, because I was taking on something that God did not put in me, to be negative, but because of the them, society, what things are going on, the climate of our world right now, you internalize that, and you're like, okay. And so our identity helps us hit that reset button. You know, when we are able to, like we talked about in the last episode, define ourselves, and we know that definition, and we take that in, that when we start feeling anything that's opposite of who God has defined us as, then we can hit that reset buttons and, okay, this is who I am. You know, I'm not what's going on. I'm not what they say, the them say. You know, I can hit that reset button and really know who I am, and then operate from that place of how God defined me, you know. And so, yeah.
Girl, that's so good. As you were saying that, that made me think about like how on your telephone and on our cell phones and on our computers, that sometimes when there's so much that has gotten on them, and maybe there's been something to try to distort it, there's been something that tries to attack it, sometimes you got to do a manufacturer's reset. Come on now, so that it can be restored to its initial settings. And really, that's what identity is about, is being restored to the settings that the manufacturer of God had intended for us in the first place. Because, you know, like it talks about in the first chapter of Jeremiah, it says, before you were formed, you know, before we were formed in our mother's womb, that God had a purpose and a plan for us. And sometimes the them in some of our lives journey may have been people that were family members. You know what I mean? Like there may have been people along the path that have spoken things regarding your life that said you're gonna be just like this, you're gonna be just like your daddy, you're gonna be just like your mama, you're never gonna accomplish anything, you're not enough because you're dark, because you're light, because you're skinny, because you're thick, because you're, you know, there's so many things. And so we have to take the time to be reset and restored to the manufacturers, how God created us to be, and recognize that it's not about them, it's about what the Lord has purpose for my life, and that our identity is defined by God. We are who God says that we are. And he wants us to get to the place where we put more weight on what God says about us than what people, because sometimes, I'll be honest, there have been times in life where I disobeyed God because I was concerned about what people would say. I was concerned about what would they think. And one time, it's funny now, but it was when God was really dealing with me in this area at the church I was at. I was singing in the choir, and the Lord, service, the Spirit was moving, and the Lord told me to get on my knees to pray. And I was like, you want me to get up on, you want me to get on my knees in this choir stand and pray. So what I did was scoot to the edge of the seat and was like, I'll pray like this. Because if I get on my knees, they're going to think I'm trying to be too spiritual. And so I literally scoot to the edge of the chair and started praying. And it was really like the Lord said, honey, you just, I need your obedience. What you just gave was a sacrifice. And he was trying to break me from the weight of like the weight of always thinking, what are they going to say? Because it can make you miss obeying God when you put all your weight on them. And God is so funny in the way that sometimes he will have you breaking that in all types of unique ways. He started having me break it through things that would seem embarrassing. Like literally he had to break that out of me. One time I was in the choir singing, and we were stepping down to, we would sing this song talking about I'm going to walk, and we would get in the spirit and start walking around the church. Can y'all tell me why I'm leading the song? Okay, I got the microphone, stepping out the choir stand, and fell. My heel got caught up. That's when we were wearing robes, and I had on somebody's robe that was too big for me. And my heel got caught, and I fell. Right? I fell in the middle of singing a song. But you know what? Like, I jumped right up and I said, see how the devil will do? He will try to make you fall down and you got to get back up again. But it's funny, but I kept having incidents like that where God would allow things like that to happen. I'm like, why are you letting me have all these embarrassing moments in front of people? God, why are you doing me like that? And it's funny now, but literally he's like, I want you to put more weight on obeying me than being concerned about them. What will they think? What will they say? When you know who you are in Christ, when you know who God created you to be, you stop putting all the weight on them and you obey God, and it's like, even what you're saying, what we have going on right now is so important that we have an ear to hear what God is saying and that we do what he's leading us to do. And we're able to do that when we have identity. You have people right now trying to prove that I'm in the fight, I'm doing this. And that's good if you're doing what he led you to do. But don't do things just to make a point with people. And I'm going to say this, and then I'm going to turn it over for us to give us our leftovers as we wrapped up. In getting free from them, it is so important that we don't spend our time comparing ourselves to other people. This has been a life-changing verse for me. It's 2 Corinthians 2:12. It says, for we dare not class ourselves or compare ourselves with those who commend themselves, but they, measuring themselves by themselves and comparing themselves among themselves, are not wise. It is not wise to spend your time comparing yourself to other people. So that is my leftover that I want you to go home with. Don't, it's not wise for you to spend all your time comparing yourself to them, they, and whatever other you want to use. Compare yourself to what God says about you. And ladies, what are your leftovers that we want to send them home with in their to-go box?
My leftover would be to make sure you don't allow your roles. Time won't permit for us to go into that, but just the roles that you play, don't allow that to drown out your identity. A lot of us, of course, we're daughters, some of us are wives, mothers, we're friends to people, we're siblings, and whatever, our entrepreneurs, we're in various areas, but don't let your titles stifle your identity, because that could be grouped into thems. That's a whole group of thems. What people say, you are as a mom, as a wife, as a this, it's all coupled into that, and it fights against what you actually are. You're more than, you may be caretaking for your mom right now, your elderly parents. There's more to you. Don't, allow that to stifle what your identity is. You may be a person, as Bernice mentioned earlier, who is a parent and has been parenting for so many years, based on however many children you have. And we lose ourselves all the time as mothers in our children and caring for them. We even lose our name. If our kids are in extracurricular activities, we're no longer what our name is. We're, Darren's mom. We're Leslie's mom. We're just like, no, I have a name. And I have things that I like outside of coming to these games all the time. And yes, we love that. And we want to support our children, but there's more to you. There's more to you than your 9 to 5. Martina, you're a great educator. You're awesome at what you do, but there's more to your self-identity. And others who are watching, I'll just use that as an example, but just making sure that them, all of our roles that are balled up into one big them, don't let that stifle your self-identity.
Yeah. I would just like to briefly just say that, words, what they say, that we don't take on the identity of what others are saying about you. my daughters, when they were in school, they used to always say, well, they said blah, 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 blah. And I was like, well, who is they? And they would not be able to tell me because they were going through rumor mills of, what they would say about whatever. And I would tell them, don't listen to what they say. You find out the information for yourself, for your own hearing, go to the source yourself. Do not listen to what they say. And so if I want my leftover is not to listen to what they say, listen to what God says and take that into your heart. And so that kind of leads us to our next segment.
Tell us about it before we close.
And so our next segment is me versus God. What does God say in our identity? And so our next episode, we hope that you tune in, and we hope that you have found something from this episode. And if you tuned in to the last episode about identity, this 3-part series on identity, we're going to be hitting on what God says, me versus God. And so it's not a competition with God because we have the Holy Spirit within us. And so we can operate and move with God. When God moves, we move just like that.
Amen. Lord have mercy. Thank you all. Thank you all for joining us again for Table Talks. We hope that you supped on all that was spoken, and that even you take these leftovers with you and continue to put them in the refrigerator of your heart.
Oh, I like that.
Okay.
That's good.
That was good.
So we love you all. Make sure that you join us again for the next episode of Table Talks. Blessings. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Mm.